double standard parenting. It's tripping most of us up. And in this video, I'll be talking about how to identify it, but also what to do about it. Hey, welcome back everybody. My name is Eduardo Archer and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And this video is a part of a series called Parenting Your Mouth, where I talk about the things that we say as parents that kind of trip us up and ways that we can bring more balance and effectiveness to our parenting by the things that we say. So today I'm talking about the idea of a double standard parent. And when I talk about this, I'm really talking about two things. One is the mindset that says, hey, do as I say, not as I do. All right. And the other piece of it is the parent that says, well, sometimes I go after that issue and sometimes I just don't. All right. So let's talk about each of these two ideas. And I want to give you tools on what you can do to progress above it and to meet your kids where they're at and be more effective. All right, so let's start with the do as I say, not as I do. Turn off those screens, do not eat sugar, you better eat more vegetables. All these things we're saying, but we ourselves, we don't do it. And that's a problem, right? But here, the reason why we do this is because sometimes it feels like I need my own comforts as a parent. Like, so the phone is a way for me to de-stress, you know, and sometimes I don't feel like eating an extra salad, even though I know this child needs it, you know, for the trajectory of their life. So that's one of the reasons why we tend to be in that place. And when you boil it down, when you boil it all the way down, one of the core issues with the do as I say, not as I do mindset is this idea that, look, I'm the parent, you're the child. You be quiet, you listen to me. Why? Because I'm the parent and you're the child, right? That's really where you're at when you boil all of it all the way down. All right, let's talk about the other mindset and why we do that. So the other one is sometimes I go after the issue and sometimes I don't. Now, why do we do that? Because we're tired. Quite frankly, we're tired. And so we're constantly going after the same thing with them over and over and over again. And you know, sometimes I feel the energy and the motivation and the desire and I go after correcting it of them. And sometimes I don't because I'm tired. So when you look at that and begin to boil it down, really the tiredness, it comes down to the issue of, as parents, it sometimes is more comfortable to know we have power than to think about the weight of the responsibility of our power. It sometimes is more comfortable to know we have power than to think about the weight of the responsibility of our power. Okay, I had to rewind that just to let that sink in for a second. And so, look, I don't want us to stay stuck with just the knowledge of our power, but not a really good way of implementing it. And I don't want us to get stuck with the idea of I'm just a parent and our kids need to listen. Let's start talking about why this is a problem ultimately and what it can begin to build in our kids if we don't rearrange this. Warning, the next few things I'm going to say is going to be pretty hard. Okay, so let me get through it really quick. So the statement that we make to our kids is do as I say, not as I do. But the response that we're getting from our kids is, look, the thing that you're doing is speaking so loudly that I can't hear what you're actually saying, right? And so that's one of the things that we have to get back to. Quick reference to this moment in the Bible, Matthew 25. There's a moment where Judas, he comes up, he kisses Jesus, you know, and soldiers step up to grab him, to arrest him. At this point, the disciples are like awoken out of sleep. They were kind of like mad, tired, and lazy. So they woke up, saw this whole thing happening. Peter, who historically is like this guy that's kind of like aggressive, picks up a sword and cuts an ear off one of the soldiers. The thing that Jesus says to Peter, he picks up the ear and puts it back on the soldier and heals it. And the statement he makes to him is, Peter, if you live by the sword, you'll die by the sword. I'm not just telling you Bible stories for the sake of it. There's a purpose behind it. And I believe that the real messaging that Jesus was going for at that moment is this. Look, Peter, if you feel and believe that power is enough to get you through life, you're going to eventually lose when you realize you have no power. Someone will always be more powerful than you. Someone will always be more at advantage to take advantage of you than you are of somebody else. And so the message is, don't live by power, okay? That's not enough. The problem with the do as I say and not as I do statement, and even the sometimes I do, sometimes I don't mindset in parenting, is this idea of our kids are not tracking our directives, they're tracking our power, right? They're not so interested in doing the right thing. They're more so learning how to do the dance around how we feel in any given moment, right? And this is a problem, because what we're teaching them is to go after and to follow our power moves, as opposed to go after and follow our command, our wisdom, our intent for the betterment of their life. They're missing that piece because the inconsistency of your command, right? The double standard of your command. So we've got to get back to a place of getting very clear and very simple on what we're doing and how we catch ourselves when it comes to double standard parenting. Let's get out of it. Let's start talking about solutions. Like, what do I do now? I'm going to talk about this in two ways. What to do before the double standard, what to set up so that the double standard never happens, and then what to do after you catch yourself hitting them with a double standard of parenting. So let's start with, what do you do before? What do you need to set up before the double standard? One of the first things that we have to address is the mindset. We have to address the mindset, because when you begin to boil down the mistake that we're making is it's essentially this power move. It's the idea that I am the parent and you are the child. Is the idea that, like, follow my power, not necessarily my intent. And so we have to address that and kind of like take that apart. So one of the ways that we're going to address that is, I want you to understand that no one came to you and gave you a certificate and said that you are finished, you are mature, you are final. And nobody gave you a certificate that said you are qualified as a human being to lead other human beings. We are all in a constant and ongoing process of learning, process of adjusting, of being able to mature in our own relationships and our own responses, our own inhibitions. Like, we all have work to do. And I want you to understand that your kids are the next chapter of you being able to grow more mature. You need them as much as they need you. So I just want you to adjust that mindset by understanding that your learning is not finished yet. That the very thing you're commanding in them, it's important now to reflect on yourself and say, well, where am I at with this principle of eating better? Where am I at with this principle of less screen time? And how do I adjust? How do I improve? Because just as much is going to make them better as they grow. I still got another 50 years on this planet. I still got another 80 years to go. I have some room to grow myself. Maybe if I start doing this today, I could be a much better 60-year-old. Okay, so there it is. I mean, that's the one thing that we have to do, is address and adjust our mindsets when it comes to what parenting is for our own development. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing that we should do before the double standard. How do we structure life? One of the things to address and look at is family structure. There's a chance that you might be putting forward too many rules. And look, I'll say this, that if everything is a problem, if everything is something that needs to be corrected, life can become incredibly suffocating. So that's one of the reasons I tell parents, look, come up with 3 main rules, and everything else is negotiable. You get to choose if you're going to fight those battles or not, but there's 3 hardcore, stern ones that you're going to go after every time. Okay, and that way, if you can hold yourself accountable to showing up during those 3 rules, then you're going to be on your way to create some stability and clarity in the messaging of your parenting. I think the other key thing in the structure of family is this idea of if your kids can do something at 80% as well as you can, it's good to go. Go ahead and ship it out and go ahead and move that one on, right? And so what I want us to get away from is a perfectionism that comes, because if you hold yourself and them to this high, constantly increasing standard, all you're doing is setting yourself up for opportunities to kind of be tripped up by that very standard. And boom, you got double standards happening, right? So that's one thing, is to lower that. And one of the last things I'll say is, don't create any rules that you yourself cannot follow. And look, beyond that, don't create any rules that everyone in the house cannot follow, right? Everyone has got to be held to the same standard. And again, that's going to help clarify a singular message that we all can track and respond to. So that's important. So let's move on to what you do after the double standard. How do you respond when you catch yourself in the middle of it, doing something that you told them not to do, or forgetting to go after something that's a top 3 rule that you forgot or didn't go after for a long time. So this is what it can look like. 1, when you catch it, make a public declaration. Make a public declaration that says, hey, I noticed this and I am going to make an effort to clean this up and to try to do this better. I want to say this, guys. Do not be afraid of repairing these things with your children, and don't hide it. It's one of the worst things is for them to watch you kind of lie to yourself and never do anything about it. It's better for them to see you mess up and fix it than it is for them to never see you mess up, because now they have a model of how to mess up and fix it. They can practice it because they've watched you mess up and fix it. So it's important that when you catch yourself at that moment, just say, hey, messed up here. I'm going to be doing things differently from this point forward. That'd be really helpful. I'll just throw this in. Your kids don't need to hold you accountable. Okay, so export the responsibility of being held accountable to a peer or somebody that's mentored, or somebody you look up to, a spouse, a friend. Make a commitment to somebody in your community and your connections to say, hey, this one thing I'm going after because I want it for my kids. I want them to eat better, so I'm going to go after eating better. I want you, best friend. I want you, spouse. I want you, mentor, pastor, to help me kind of hold myself accountable to it. Okay. All right. Well, that's it. That's how we're going to become more clear, decrease the double standard of parenting that we throw out and our kids are watching, so that we could be even more effective and even more clear in our parenting. Thank you, guys. I will see you on the next one. Let's keep moving forward.